Hello guys, Fractured Protagonist here again. Today I wanted to talk about a concept that you may or may not have heard about called wage slavery. Now, if you sit down and think about it for a moment, this is a real thing. This is a phenomenon that hundreds, if not thousands, maybe millions of people in the workforce experience on a daily basis. This is basically where working at an office that you don't want to be in for a living feels just like a traditional slavery system. The first sign of this is that you like where you work but feel trapped. You're getting paid to do something that you used to enjoy but now hate, and the only reason why you keep returning is because you might fear being homeless or not being able to meet basic human needs. So the job becomes nothing more than just a paycheck. Now, I've experienced this quite a lot myself in my previous jobs because I've been in corporate for a long time. And I've explained this in my other videos where being in corporate jobs, it just feels like you're nothing but a drone or robot. And I used to like working for these companies before, trying to climb that corporate ladder, like I said before in my other videos as well. But after a while, it just kind of becomes the same monotonous struggle trying to get to the next rung of that ladder. And after years of doing this, it just feels like I'm getting nowhere. And then that's where the unhappiness starts to set in. So I became the real life caricature of that hamster in the wheel, just running and spinning in place, not getting anywhere in my career. So feeling trapped in the job that you don't like isn't really the worst part. The worst part is knowing that you have to wake up at the same time every morning, getting ready for work, going to the office that you don't want to be at, dealing with a bunch of people on your commute. Just, it doesn't feel like it's worth it. And then you end up having 8 to 10 hours working and just doing the thing that you're supposed to do at the job, and then reversing course, going back home, ending up doing the same thing, commuting, finally getting home and being so exhausted that you don't know what else to do with the rest of the day. I mean, I'm exhausted just talking about it like this because I'm reliving it in my mind, knowing that I'm going to have to do it the next day and rinse and repeat. Which brings me to my second point of having a poor work-life balance. So your job consumes a disproportionate amount of your life. You may work excessively long hours, constantly thinking or worrying about work, and seldom, if ever, take days off or vacations with the family. So when I'm at the office, I work about 8 to 10 hours, depending on how much work I have to get done for the day or for the week. But there might be those of you that work longer hours per day. So you may have 40 to 50, maybe upwards of 60-hour work weeks. And I know that really kills the lot of you. I already feel like I barely have time for myself during the week when I'm at work. So when I finally end up getting home, I have what, maybe 3 or 4 or 5 hours max before I go to sleep and then restart the day over again. It never feels like I have anything for myself just to take a breath. I always feel like I have to be constantly on the go. And that depletes my energy levels, and I'm pretty sure that it does the same thing for all of you guys out there. And I don't know how many of you guys out there have kids, but being a single dad here, I try my best to have energy levels for my son and make sure that he does his homework and has dinner and has time for himself before, going to sleep, and then him restarting the day and going to school because, school is basically his career right now. So the other hard aspect of this point is that I'm not the only one that's going through it, but so is my son because we have to keep a schedule. And sometimes it's rough because we're both tired. And some of you guys out there might say to me, well, at least there's the weekend. But in my reality, 2 days will never be enough. It always feels like the next weekend is going to be something to look forward to. But knowing that when Sunday night hits, having to wake up the next day at 5 or 6 in the morning to get ready for work is just a huge drain on me. And even taking or considering taking vacation days feels like a guilty pleasure because the workplace always makes you feel like you shouldn't be doing that because there's always some deadline you have to meet. And you're always sitting there in the office feeling like, should I be be taking any vacation days, or am I going to lose my job? And what about my job security? These are the things that any wage slave considers on a daily basis. So when you think about these issues that crop up in your mind, it just feels like you don't really have any control of yourself or anything that has to do with the workplace. Which now brings me to my third point, the lack of control or autonomy. It may feel like you have no control over the working conditions, the schedule, or future career path. You may feel unable to voice grievances to management or HR for fear of repercussions. It feels like you may really have zero control in anything that has to do with your job. I mean, maybe you do have control in the beginning of where you want to work, because when you apply to jobs, you have a list of places that you're going to go for an interview. And when you're sitting there in the interview, in your mind, you're probably thinking, would this be a place where I want to work? Can I actually grow here? Do I want to work with these people? Are these people nice? So yes, technically you have some control, but when you're actually in the office working, being hired as an employee, that level of control drastically drops and you're basically at the whim of the office. You just have to follow every rule, because if you don't, there's fear of repercussions where you have to speak to the HR department and they may have to tell you, okay, so you're going to have to follow some other rules and read some other guidelines in order for you to keep your job. It's at this point that any crumb of control or autonomy that you thought you may have had just goes out the window. Even your lunch breaks where you feel free are not yours to have. I mean, you get 1 whole hour to eat your lunch, take a breather, just not think about work, and then go back to your seat and then continue chugging away, staring at that screen until, quitting time hits. And to be even more technical, you really don't get that entire hour. Once you step out the door, you're being clocked. So it may take some time for you to go to the store, grab a sandwich, and, maybe run some errands. That's going to take, 15, 20 minutes. And there goes almost half of your lunchtime. And then you're going to eat your food, whatever it's going to be, and count more minutes till you have to sit back down in the office. And then once that hour is nearly over, you have to be in front of your computer or whatever you're doing before the time is up, or else someone might call you out on it. And I've been called out myself for being, 2 minutes late going back to my desk after lunch. I mean, that's pretty lame. These are probably the same people that when they were kids in school were probably telling the teacher on Fridays, hey, Miss So-and-so, you forgot to give us homework. And then the whole class erupts in just anger. But unfortunately, that's the sad reality of the workplace. Now, the fourth point I want to bring up is that you may feel financial dependency and lack of savings. So, despite working long, hard hours, you may struggle to have or save much money. This constant financial imbalance forces continued dependence on your current unwanted job for survival. So, in other words, you feel stuck because you may need this job since maybe you didn't save enough money due to maybe your bills piling up and other expenditures that you maybe didn't expect that were coming at some unforeseen time in your life. For example, last year, 2025, I had to deal with a handful of medical emergencies that I wasn't expecting to deal with, and it just took a lot of money out of my wallet. So it forced me to just dive into my savings and try to pay all these medical bills that I really did not expect to have to deal with in that year. And I'm usually pretty conscientious about saving money. I try to buy things when they're on sale, like the 2 for 1, the 3 for 2, or whatever. But sometimes things are going to come up in your life that you're just not going to expect, that is going to just put a huge dent in your savings and in your wallet. And it never not sucks. And you might start feeling a level of resentment because of that, since you bust your ass during the week for hours and hours doing whatever job you're doing and just trying to make those ends meet, and only for some unexpected situation to come up and eat all of your profits or the money that you work so hard to make. And that resentment that's building up inside of you will make you exhausted if you're not already exhausted from your job. And whenever some social event might come up, you may not feel like even going. Which now brings me to my fifth point of social and personal isolation. This is where your work schedule and anxiety limit your social contact and relationships with family and friends. You might start feeling isolated from personal events, such as attending your child's school play or graduation because of work obligations. There may be some of you who have fallen into this trap, and because of job obligations, you might have missed an important event in your child's life, like a school play or a sporting event that your child was part of. And honestly, that's pretty sad. Pretty sad because there are offices like that just don't care about their employees and the fact they do have a life outside of that office. Now, me personally, I'll never let that happen because, quite honestly, fuck all that. No job is ever worth losing time with your own kid because there's always going to be another job out there and you can always find another one if you so choose. They're always out there. Now, these points that I've illustrated in this video are quite honestly why people want to try to escape their 9 to 5 and find different outlets of income and just different ways to live their life. And I'd be lying to myself and you guys if I didn't say that I was using YouTube as a way for a new income stream. I just want to figure out different ways to be more free with my time while making money. Like, who's not trying to do that in this day and age? And at the same time, I want to have more time for myself and my kid. At the end of the day, financial freedom is what we're all basically striving for anyways. So that does it for this video. Let me know in the comments if you found any of this helpful. If you have your own thoughts or ideas, share them. Subscribe if you feel like it, that would be awesome. This has been Fractured Protagonist reminding you guys to keep it simple. Talk to you guys later.